Um, so hi everyone. As you may know, this meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So let's look at the agenda and see if I added a couple of items, but let's see if there are others added more. All right. Okay, so the first item is the migration plan. So I created like a long list of tasks for phase 1 migration. I think we should be able to hit, like to finish phase 1 in 118. And I don't think we have any like major blockers for that. Hopefully we will not get any like major issues or bugs, but we'll wait and see. I wonder if anybody has any questions about the migration, how it's going, any feedback. All right, so all is good. So related to migration, I sent a PR to disable out-of-tree framework plugin registration. And the reason is that right now the framework is in flux. There's so many changes happening to it, so there's no point to actually claim that we support that. And actually having that is complicates phase 1 migration. So I created an issue to disable out-of-tree framework plugin registration until we are done with phase 1 of the migration, and then in phase 2, basically in 1.19, we will enable it back. Once all predicates and priorities are run natively as plugins, and they were able to access all the handlers that they needed through the framework handler. If you want more details about it, please take a look at the issue, and if you have any concerns about it. But I highly doubt that it makes sense for us to say that we support this while the framework is going through so much changes.
Yeah. I saw someone has some concern that I think they are from Tencent from China. So basically, they are very aggressively trying this new feature, and yeah, they are using that way to build a scheduler, vendoring the CMD scheduler, and build their own stuff, right? So basically, instead of aggressively says that we don't support this, how about just giving an explicit warning says that we are, we are experiencing a large amount of API changes and blah blah, and says that you may be risk in using this feature. Just give a warning there instead of totally disabling that. Does that sound better?
So the reason is not only that we are in flux and we are changing, it's also the complication that comes with it to enable it back. We need to create a number of objects like the scheduler cache, and we need those at the time when we create the default registry. And the default registry right now is created at the very early stages of creating the scheduler, basically in the app/server.go. And it would require us to either like really violate some basic, coding principles like throwing in global variables all over the place, or basically expose the internal cache all the way to the app/server.go file. So, I mean, there are some complications that like to keep that support during the migration. So once the migration is done, we will cut all these dependencies, and and we can enable them back, and we don't really need to have all these hacks to instantiate predicates and priorities at the time when we create the default registry. So it's really a tricky plumbing issue, more than just saying that we don't support it because I'm afraid that they will face problems with the changes of the framework API itself.
Yeah, my point is that from our perspective, to make our code more consistent and more easy to maintain, yeah, it may be a good idea. But in the external users' perspective, if they are already trying this aggressively, and we totally disabling that, we'll just stop their road and going forward. I just don't want to see that. We do need external users to give us feedback and how the direction, if it looks right.
It's yeah. I'll take another look. I'll take another look and see if
what if they continue using current interface and get the internal cache is nil and get the volume vendor cache gets nil. So what happens to their use case? I'm wondering.
Sorry?
Yeah, so basically if they are keeping using current interface and using your latest PR, they're continually registering using their implementation, right? So what the cache they're getting is new, right?
It's not about like what is it that they are getting. It's if we create the registry at that point very early, then this is the one that the scheduler will use. And at that time, like we don't have those the schedule, like the cache and the volume binder handler, so we can't actually create it.
Okay.
We can't create the default registry. It's not that they will not be available to them. It's like there is
not available to us.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to work. Like so, it will break the code.
Is it possible to, during the migration, we actually just take we just let the same registry be created at the beginning, but during the scheduler creation, we just we just register more plugins from the priorities and
right. Like this is another approach that I also thought about, but I don't like this, like registering things on the fly compared to having a clear static map of what is it that we have as a default set of
yeah, but again, this is just because of the migration, so I don't think it's that bad to have these extra plugins being registered at a different time than startup.
Yeah, it is a trade-off between like really breaking the structure of the code slightly and support something that is like I feel it's not that useful. But I hear you guys. Like I'll take another look and try to either create those handlers somewhere at the beginning and instantiate them, for example, as a global variable that we read into that we read at the time when we create the registry at the very early stages, or we do registration on the fly at a later stage for the plugins that actually need those handlers.
These are just priorities, right? Or you don't expect new plugins, like plugins from scratch to need to register at this stage.
You mean they can register later? Yeah, because they will have those available through the framework handler.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, okay. So thanks for the feedback. I'll modify the PR and make sure that it's still supported. to register out of tree plugins. Although, just because like there are multiple people who are asking for it, but in my opinion, it's I don't think it's that useful. But I'm just one vote, so. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I had a couple of things on there to bring up. First one is the descheduler. There was some talk on Slack about upgrading that to 116. So I've started working on that. My plan with that actually is to kind of do it in two parts, and first bump everything to 116 with Glide that it has now. And then once that's all sorted out and working, transition to GoMod, just to kind of bring it in line with everything else in Kubernetes right now. I don't know if there's any opinions or concerns about that, but I linked to the PR. That's in progress there. It's a pretty, well, it seems like it'll be a pretty smooth bump, and there's just a couple things I need to update because I think it was last updated around like 1.9. So there's some patterns and packages that don't exist anymore.
Hey, V, this is a question for you. Does the 116 branch include the event pod spread API, or is that in an alpha branch?
116.0, yeah, has the official alpha event pod spread API.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, so if that's good, then that'll, I should be good with that today or tomorrow. I'm ready for some review on that. The second thing that I had was Robbie actually.
So Mayank, you raised a comment on the line of client Go, but I don't think client Go is related with the API. It should be some other entry, I guess. But as long as it's 116, it's fine. I just
Okay. Yeah, I think all I wanted to know was that which version should Mike like? It's not an alpha branch that we need to, because we'll not be.
No, it's not alpha branch. It's an official tag.
Got it. Okay, cool. I think that's all I wanted. Thanks, Mike, for working on this.
Yep, it's no problem. So the second thing was Ravi mentioned to me today, and I think it's a good question to ask. KubeCon is next month, and I was wondering if we have any plans or schedule right now for a SIG face-to-face, and maybe just some kind of general presentation on scheduling, try to introduce people to it, get some more contributors. Is there anything like that right now?
Yeah, so I think Wei and Rab will be presenting like an intro to the scheduler, and I will be doing also a session or a deep dive on the scheduler during KubeCon.
Okay. Anything for the contributor summit, which is, I think that's Sunday and Monday.
That I don't know.
That should be on Monday. I'm
Right.
not aware of any spot reserved for SIG scheduling face-to-face. Bobby, are you aware of anyone? I don't think there's one reserved for us, right?
We can't hear you.
And by the way, I have one talk accepted in the Contributor Summit. So if you are interested, just swing by. I will talk about the CAP implementation journey, which is using the event pod spread as an example.
Cool.
All right. Well, if it's not too late, and if there's interest, I'd be interested in looking into trying to set up a face-to-face, at least for us at the summit. I don't know how formalized the schedule is at this point.
I'm okay with that. Sounds good to me.
Okay.
We still can't hear you, Bobby.
Do you hear me?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
There was some issues with my microphone or audio system, whatever. So anyway, I think what I remember, I'm not 100% sure about this, but what I remember is that in this contributor summit, they decided to not have any face-to-face meetings for SIGs. Not that they decided that they don't have any face-to-face meetings, but particularly for SIGs, they decided to not have face-to-face meetings. That's what I vaguely remember from in a conversation.
Okay.
All right. If there are no other agenda items, I have another one that I would like to discuss related to critical priorities. So right now, I'll give you guys a second if there are any. Okay. So the docs, Kubernetes docs says that this system supports creating pods with system critical priority in any namespace, and that doesn't seem to be true. I think Bobby in the past sent like a PR to disable this until quota, resource quota is implemented. I don't know if Bobby remembers.
Yeah, that's true. So,
and I think we updated the docs. So,
yeah, basically, I mean, in terms of coding and priority by itself, there is really no issue with letting users create any pod priority in any namespace. But the reason that we decided to limit it is that if you have untrusted users in your cluster who can create pods, basically in multi-tenant scenarios, if you have untrusted users, and if they are allowed to create any pod with any priority, the problem is that they could basically kick out any other pods, including system critical pods, from the cluster. Mm-hmm. So this could cause a denial of service basically in your cluster and could take down the cluster. For that reason, we decided to limit those priorities to kube system, where users normally don't have quota to, I mean, untrusted users definitely do not have quota to create pods in. So only pods in kube system can specify those priorities. This was actually, this was the case, and we decided to remove this when we have quota for other namespaces, quota by priority, basically. And I think it got graduated to beta, right? A while ago.
Yeah, I think resource quota is available right now. Do we have quota for?
And resource quota has been available for a long time, but particularly resource quota based on priority is, so basically in resource quota scope, you can specify a priority class. For example, you say at priority, I don't know, system critical, you have like in namespace full, you have 3 CPUs and things of that sort. So basically creating a quota based on priority was something that did not exist, and we added it later with pod priority, but it was alpha for a while. I think it's now beta. And
is that limit priority class consumption by default? You pass in
so in
configuration.
I don't know what you mean by what do you mean by default?
That's just the header of the section that talks about priority classes in the resource quota docs. So it seems like it's a configuration to the admission.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a config to the admission controller for quota. Right. You can basically specify what resources are limited resources, and if you specify resources as limited resources, then users must have quota for them. If you don't specify those as limited resources, then users do not need quota for them. They can create
it's not that by default everything has a quota.
By default, everything, I think by default, things are not limited resources. So basically, if you don't have any quota in your cluster and you don't have any limited resources, which is a default, you can create anything you want.
No, right. Like if you don't have a resource quota, resource created to limit the resources. But this configuration seems to be a little bit different. It seems it configures the admission controller,
right,
to whether or not to actually enforce priority class-based quotas. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how the quota admission controller works.
But my question is, like, why isn't that the case for other resources like CPU and memory? Or are they enabled are they like allowed by default to have resource quotas?
I think actually I don't know about all the details there, but I think it's possible to declare those or define those as limited resources as well. So if you do that, then users need to have a quota for those too. But you know, quota is also something limited to namespaces. Namespace is scoped. So it tells you where you can create these pods and how many of these resources you can use. So anything, not anything, but almost anything can be defined as a limited resource, including the number of pods and amount of CPU or memory that they use and so on. Also the priority. Priority is basically one of the criteria to match. So basically you can say, at this particular priority, you have so much CPU or so much memory or so many pods.
Okay, I'll take another look at to better understand how resource quota works with priority classes in general. I don't have a full picture, to be honest.
But I think this is, you know, limiting critical priorities to kube system is gradually causing more and more problems for users as they are using priority more often. I think we have to remove that limitation, and that was meant to be temporary anyways until we have a proper quota in place. So now that we have the quota, we should definitely try to remove that in the upcoming release of Kubernetes.
Sounds good.
Ravi was working on this actually. I don't know if he has finished that or not.
Yeah, I saw the history of that issue. I'll ping Ravi. If he can't work on it, I'll try to pick it up or make it available for anyone to contribute and revert that change.
Yeah, sounds good.
I've got 4 more minutes. Anyone has any questions or discussion items? Okay. Thank you so much, and see you next week. Bye.